Little technical difficulties.
It's really bad when you're the overlay that you created looks
Yeah.
exactly like the intro you created, and you can't tell the difference because you don't know how to read what section of the equipment you're using.
I've
Curtis.
done a few of these Wednesday one shots without you, and I've done the exact same thing. Just so you know.
And by the time I realized I was going to click it, and I'm like, Curtis is going to click, yeah, and I was like, I know if I click it, he's going to have clicked it because I'm just a second behind you on everything. Anyway, folks, welcome back to Shooting the Shelves Wednesday one shot, or as Curtis likes to make fun of me for saying, Wednesday when shots, which
I just think it's fun.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Yeah. Who doesn't like a Wednesday?
I'm not trying to correct you. I'm trying to correct past me when I say it correctly. So it's not a dig on you. It's a dig on myself.
Oh, you're fine.
Self-burn. Speaking of self-burns, we're talking about a movie today that really took a beating in the critical and audience reactions. And I just watched it yesterday. I know you watched it a while ago.
Maybe about a month ago. Yeah.
Okay. So today we're talking about Madam Web from Sony.
And some people might be shocked to find out that this is one of our Wednesday one shots, because we've said repeatedly these are not going to be things that we're critical of. These are things that we're recommending to folks. And I don't know that this is a movie that I see too many people recommending, but we will be.
Yeah. I think when I saw you comment that you watched it and you were like, oh, it wasn't that bad, I was like, is he pulling my leg? Because it was in a chat on a show. And I was like, because I have not heard a positive thing from anybody about this. So I was just like, now I hadn't seen it, but I was like, I'm gonna watch it. I watched it yesterday, and I don't mean to say this in a dismissive way, but it held my attention. It's not a story I'm super familiar with, even being in the comics and everything. I know a little bit about who some of these characters are, but I feel like it did have some some like early 2000s vibes, superhero stuff to it that wasn't the best, but I think the actors and actresses for the most part all did a great job. I think the design and everything looked pretty good. It wasn't like your typical superhero story where it's like huge action. But I thought the dynamic between it mainly focuses on 4 female leads. Dakota Johnson, who is the Madam Web, Cassie Webb, and I thought they did a pretty good job with it. I thought it was a lot of fun. And like I said, it kept me engaged. All the different storylines were interesting, and I just really enjoyed the time watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could have been a more popular movie had they rushed it. Like, so for most of the movie, we're kind of exploring these characters, these female leads that are going to become these heroes, these characters, and we see kind of visions from the bad guy that is like seeing the future. But we never actually get to that point. We never get to that point where these girls are those characters, right? In the suits, in the costumes, doing their thing. And I think they could have rushed it and just gave us that. And I think it would have probably been more popular movie, but I wouldn't have liked it as much. I mean, we've had many a movie. I know we talk a lot about like Man of Steel with Henry Cavill and how they really rush it, and they go from the origin story all the way through to like this big, world-ending event type thing. And it just makes the movie, it's action-packed. Yes, there's lots going on, but it's not as entertaining, I guess. I felt like this did a really good job of setting up these characters, who these people are, like as people, before who they are in costumes. I'll tell you what, like if they did a second movie of this, I would be all in on it. And I think I think a second movie now, based on the response and everything, I don't know if we'll ever get that, but if they did a second movie, I think it would be phenomenal. This one was a lot of doing that background story, doing the setup, and I think it was entertaining for what it is. But I think it's kind of laying the groundwork for that universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think, and I know we're not going to be super critical and down on it because I did enjoy it. I will say the one thing that I think didn't work for me was the villain. There was something in the scenes. It felt like a lot of voiceover. Like I don't need to be super invested in the villain, but like I didn't feel like I bought into him at all. Like the concept of him, I did, but like as a viewer watching, I didn't like, you know, he felt threatening, but like just just something didn't quite line up right for me for him. But again, that's you know, it was more about the other characters. He was just the threat that kind of pulled them all together.
Yeah, that's kind of how I viewed it, was like he was that catalyst for these women getting together, for
Right.
them, you know, moving towards this direction of having these powers and stuff. You're right. He wasn't as compelling as I would say many other movie villains are. But I think it was a good story plot point to
Yeah. And
to further these women's journey.
and I don't think it was a right. It was something like technical, like in the actual production and editing of it, like something on the technical side. You know, I don't know what it was, but it was more that than the story of it. That just kind of pulled me out. I did have to laugh that she kept, minor spoiler alert. I don't think we need to throw up the banner for this, but you can if you want to.
Sure, I'm on the got my finger
Go
on the
ahead.
button.
Go ahead.
Spoiler alert. All right, here we go.
At one point, Cassie steals a taxi cab. And there's a point where she's gone for a long period of time and she's still using the taxi cab. Like, I know it shows she like pulls the license plates off of it, but I feel like that taxi cab, I don't know this, but I feel like a taxi cab's going to know where their cars are. I don't know if they have a low jack, but like, I feel like they would find it out. And like in New York City, you know, for someone who doesn't drive a lot in the city, because she's always walking, granted, I do like this. So I'll take that back a little bit. She is shown as she's a paramedic. She's an EMT driving an ambulance. And I thought that was a really interesting, you know, maybe it wasn't realistic. I don't drive a lot in New York City. Every time I do, I get infuriated. So seeing how fast she's moving through the streets, I don't buy it. But it's a movie. It was fun. And I liked that those elements played in a couple times with her driving the ambulance. It wasn't just, you know, okay, she's someone in the medical field. So, you know, I thought that was really cool. But, you know, I don't know if she's going to know the right places to hide a taxi cab for a week.
Yeah.
Again, it's a
know.
really minor nitpick. It's a really minor nitpick. I was just like,
here's what I would say to that though. I think if you're thinking about today, 2024, do they probably have an idea of where their cabs are? I would say most likely there's some way for them to check that out. But if this movie is set even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, they probably don't. I don't know that they have that technology on all of their vehicles at that point.
That's
so
right. I do
so
keep
it really
forgetting
depends
this.
on, yeah.
It was set in 23 or 2003 or 2004. So, you know, I can forgive that a little bit. It just struck me. It was just a weird thing that stuck out to me. It's not the movie's fault. It's just my brain. But I think good.
I was just gonna say I like the fact that like the main character is not, she's not out to be a hero. Like, I mean, she is as a paramedic and stuff, but she's not looking to like save these girls and put her neck out on the line for these people and stuff like that. But it's one of those things where like she keeps seeing the things that are going to happen if she doesn't step in and do these things. And so
kind of like oh, what was that series of movies, horror movies, where the kids like the logs?
Oh, like Final Destination.
Yeah, she's kind of got like a Final Destination thing going on. Yeah,
it's very much like that. And so, you know, and there's a few times where she's like even trying to like get away from these kids. Like, okay, I saved you from that, but now I'm gonna, you know, but then something else will happen. It just kind of keeps it along until she realizes that, hey, she's really stuck with these kids, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things, and I try to go into most movies, shows, whatever, with very low expectations, if not zero expectations. That way, I can't be let down. And, just based on the backlash and things like that, I went into this with like absolutely zero expectations. But I was like, hey, it was like a Saturday afternoon. I think it was on Netflix or something. I'm like, it's on, it's on. I've already
Mhm.
paid for this streaming service. I got nothing to do. Let's throw it on. And I was like, hey, this is pretty good. I mean, it's it's not the best movie ever made,
No,
but it's better than a lot of other hero movies that I've seen in the last couple years. That's for
I
sure.
I agree. And I think part of that is, I mean, granted, they're not characters I'm super invested in outside of the movie. So it's kind of like when Iron Man came out, most people that went to see that weren't already comic fans didn't know a whole lot about Iron Man.
Yeah.
When Guardians came out, really, even comic book fans, that was still a pretty niche group of characters. So I liked going into this, like not knowing, other than it's part of the Spider-Verse, so to speak, and some of these characters become
Yeah.
versions of a Spider-Man or Spider-Woman from their realities and everything. It was just a fun way to see them come together. And like you said earlier, if they had rushed to seeing them in the typical superhero type stuff, I think that would have cheapened this movie, because I liked
Mhm.
seeing those flashes of like what the future could be. And I like that we kept it with them being all pretty much normal people, except her with these kind of like precognition visions.
Mm.
And spoiler, again, we're already in the spoilers, like how she uses that in the end. I was like, how are they going to use that? It's kind of like with in Deadpool 2 with Domino. It's like, how are you going to show that in a movie? And
Yeah.
I thought they did a great job.
Lucky
I thought
isn't
they
a
did
superpower. Yes, it is.
yeah. I
Yeah.
kind of feel like this, because they didn't have to keep showing all the moments of her seeing the possibilities and telling that, like, she's like, oh wait, she's like, wait, all right, go now, or like duck,
Yeah,
like
because
she
they've
was
already
calling out.
established that part. They did that
Yeah.
earlier in the movie, and I think that's really the whole movie. I think this movie very much sets up for an amazing sequel, and I just hope that the response that this movie got doesn't stop it from happening, because I think a second movie to this would be amazing. So,
Yeah.
um,
And
yeah,
I one more thing I got to say before I wrap up my thoughts is, I think Dakota Johnson, I know I know I don't usually talk a lot about the press tours and all that stuff, but like it seemed like she didn't know why she was in this movie. I thought she did a very good job
yeah,
of portraying who this character is, getting pulled into this weird world of powers and mystery. And I like, you know, I believed, like I said, I bought into every character except for the villain. And I think, like I said, because of some of the technical issues. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. I would just like to say, kind of piggybacking off what you were saying, I actually prefer these superhero type movies that I don't know a ton about. Um, you see it a lot in fandom nowadays, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel or whatever. You see these fans that go in with this preconceived notion of what it should be based on what they know about those characters. And then if it's not exactly what they were expecting, they're let down. And I think when you go into a Guardians movie or something like that, or this, and you don't know a lot about these characters, it allows you to kind of just open your mind to what they're
mhm,
presenting to you, and not wanting it to go a certain way or the other. And I think that journey is just a lot more fun. I mean, I grew up as a DC kid. And so when I watch a Batman movie or a Superman movie, like, it really bugs the crap out of me when they take something in a direction that's very against who that character is. Like when Superman kills Zod, it's like, that is not Superman. Superman doesn't kill. It's very jarring. So going into a movie that you don't know much about these characters, it's like you can just open up your brain to whatever they're going to tell you and show you,
mhm.
and just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, clearly I have a prejudice against all things X-Men in cinema.
Yep.
Um, So if you've seen anything with me before, folks, you know what we're talking about. Just because I was such a fan of the comics before the cartoon and the movies came out. So like Curtis was saying with Superman and Batman, I'm that way with X-Men. And I'm trying the last several years to not be as judgmental going into it, and lowering my expectations going into it. But that said,
I think and I don't want to take us on too much of a tangent, but I think Fantastic Four is one of the worst. Like people that really truly love Fantastic Four, I don't know that there's ever going to be a movie that they're going to love. It's just because I thought the first two were actually pretty decent. But if you're really invested in that and you loved those comics and you love those characters, I don't know that it's ever going to happen on big screen the way that you want it to be. But this was just a fun journey. I would recommend folks, if you just have a Saturday that you want to spend with the family and watch something that's pretty entertaining, just don't worry about what the critics say. Don't worry about the Rotten Tomato scores. Don't worry about what these people are saying about, whatever. Just try it out and see for yourself. I think that you'll find that it's actually kind of fun.
Yeah. And another real quick that, one of the problems I think a lot of super movies have, you mentioned this earlier, is a lot of them are building to these like big world ending, like you're rushing to the big bad, all this stuff. I like that this one felt more street level. It was basically just about her discovering her powers and protecting these other kids, these three young ladies, from this outcome. So like it was a different level threat. And I thought that was interesting. And it made me more invested in like, oh, of course the whole universe isn't going to get destroyed. So, I know they're going to, like, I didn't know how they were going to pull this off.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised. So yeah, it was definitely worth the watch.
Yeah. So check it out, try it, and let us know what you think in the comments.
Absolutely.
And till next time, we still don't know how to sign off this segment.
Well, what if it's Wednesday been one shotting.
It definitely has been one shotting.
One shotting.
All right. That's it.
Where's the button?